Thank you, Dr. Tim. I appreciate you, and thank you for playing shows on last minute's notice.
Hey, you're very welcome and deserving. Have a wonderful show.
Thank you. So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. And today is Wednesday, March the 29th, 2023. And their call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Susan, I'm going to turn your microphone back on. While you were talking to Dr. Tim there, I was doing some searching online, and it apparently skin rashes and all are typical long COVID, I don't know if you'd call it side effects or lingering symptoms or whatever. And it looks like they give a range anywhere, just like you said, from a few days to several months. And it said, some of it could appear swollen or puffy, and some's just itchy, and some's, it depends if it's the kind of skin you have, that some of it can color to a dark or an ashy gray or a brown or even purple. So it looks like it's just, all over the board.
I know, it is. Some days I'll have a rash across my chest, and then it'll go away, but the itch doesn't go away. It travels, though. I'm fascinated. I'm really fascinated. It feels, and the itch is deep. It doesn't feel superficial. Although, and I can scratch somewhere that's not itching, and the desire to continue scratching, it's like it flares up. Oh, you're going to scratch here? Great, because I really itch here. I can introduce. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. I'm not, I'm perfectly, I feel great, and I'm walking, and I'm teaching, and I'm doing my stuff, but this thing is going on. And I had a very mild case of COVID itself, but this little visitor showed up after. And I went to the dermatologist, and that's what he said. He said, oh, no, not another one. And I said, what? And he says, we've been seeing this after COVID. How long ago did you have COVID? Well, I got better about 2 weeks ago. He said, there you go. This is what you get. I have no good news for you. He gave me a cortisone cream, and I used it for a little while, but I don't want to do that because there are side effects to that. So and it was expensive too, but I have a whole tube of it left. So anyway, I was curious.
Some people, and here again, it's like, drugs, but some people online here are saying, like antihistamines help or whatever. One of the things, and it wasn't a COVID because Aria didn't have COVID, but she several weeks ago had developed a rash on her hands, and she would dig and dig and dig at them, and one of the things that we found that helped more than anything was I took cold, wet wash rags and wrapped her hands, and the cool, compress or whatever seemed to help it. We tried oatmeal baths and several different things, and it didn't seem to help it, but the coolness seemed to make the itch stop. I don't know, but it's all over your body. You'd have to get in a cold bathtub, or I don't know what you do there.
Maybe in the summertime I would do that, but I hate being cold. No, it really is just, I'm observing it and thinking, wow, what is this? But of course you wonder, what have I been doing? What am I itching about in my psyche and all this stuff? I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
Well, Michael's joined us. Maybe he has another comment.
Okay. Hello, Michael.
Physiology is irritated?
Yeah.
Ouch. Well, when you look at the whole idea of a healing crisis, remembering that whatever energy goes into the system, on the way back out, it's going to look the same as it did on the way in. If you deal with this physical set of symptoms the same as you would with, let's say, if you found yourself, like from experience, you found yourself going through many layers of depression, And when you were able to do the work and be with it, the depression disappeared and lightened, lessened. And over the last 3 or 4 years, it's compared to where it used to be for you, as I understand it. Would that be accurate? Okay.
That is accurate.
So
seems miraculous.
Yeah, it is. So my offering would be, now you're dealing with something that your body's processing through on a physiological level. And if you can say to yourself, remember we've said before, 4 things that determine whether you're in a healing crisis or not. 1, you ask yourself, have I been doing more and more of the right things? 2, had I hit a new level of vitality? Before this set of symptoms occurred, had you hit a new state of being, a new clarity, a new aliveness, I went to bed at night just feeling great?
Yeah, I could say yes.
There's a yes for that. Okay. So, and then the third question, what's happening with elimination? Obviously, elimination's increasing. Your physiology is finding the best pathway it can to process this energy out.
Wow.
So that would be a yes. And then the fourth one would be, and this may or may not come into cognitive awareness, the fourth question is, am I craving the drug I used to use whatever it is that I'm going through, that I used to use in order to suppress this? So it might be, some kind of a food craving, or maybe, I don't know if there was ever a time when you did alcohol, or maybe you're on prescription medication. Or is there a part of you that goes, this is happening and I want this?
Yeah, sugar. And I'm off of it. But
you have your answer.
Think about how, but what the heck? I've been off sugar for a long time. But there it is again.
And now you've come to a level of vitality where your structure can process through whatever that was used to suppress. I think I've shared before. I have shared before.
I just read a text. Jeanie just texted me, and so I read it, and I didn't listen to what you said, what you just said.
So I'm saying that your body, your structure, your energy field, as an energy field, not a body, has come to a level of vitality. Yes, you quit sugar a long time ago, and maybe it's taken from whatever that time frame was for your structure. Like for instance, if you're overloading the pancreas with sugar, excess insulin, body becomes insulin resistant. The insulin can't get into the cells, so the cells will put up a block because too much insulin in the cell creates damage. So maybe, you gave up sugar a year ago, and maybe it's taken a year for your cells to let go of the insulin resistance and allow that insulin back in for the cell to function more efficiently. And now, functioning more efficiently, the cells that have made that shift with you over the last year are now throwing off a toxicity that had accumulated that you couldn't handle while you were under fire from insulin. So it might have taken a year for that. If that's the drug that's involved, it might have taken a year, if it was a year ago that you quit, for your structure to be able to put the ducks in a row to go, okay, now we're ready for a leap in vitality. So now we're going to go through this layer. And so if I'm in depression, if I'm in anger, if I'm in fear, what's the one of the main things we suggest you go for? The cosmic grease, right? And what's the cosmic grease? Willingness. So if I go into resistance to my body doing this release process, and I say this from experience, way back in the early days of doing this work, my history was lung infections. When I was a kid, or at birth, they told my father I wasn't going to make it through the night. Said he better get down there to see his son if he wanted to see me alive. The early years of school, I was always in school, in a hospital, an oxygen tent, rather than the first week or two of school. I can remember I was in fourth grade. I remember this like it was yesterday. I was in fourth grade. Miss McGuire was my teacher, and I couldn't breathe. And I'm in the back of the classroom, and I stand up to say, and I fell over. I just passed out and rushed to the hospital, and here I am in an oxygen tent. So my lungs took quite a whipping. I mean, they had me on drugs to suppress, inhalator. I mean, I didn't go anywhere. When I was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I had an inhalator in my pocket everywhere that I went, and I used it a lot. Which, man, I assaulted my lungs with something that helped me to breathe, but didn't help my lungs to heal. So in the early days of doing this work, now I'm in Fort Lauderdale. I've got a friend there. Actually, you heard us talk about him about a year ago. He passed away, a fellow named Steve Paskowski. He was a construction guy, did big construction projects, and I did his wedding ceremony for him. I mean, they were dear friends when we went down there. We stayed with them. And in these early days, I'm doing, once a week in Fort Lauderdale, I'm doing a Course in Miracles class, and they were at that, I was there about 7 years, and they were there every week, and we were really close friends. At one point, I'm doing some detoxifying physiologically, and 2 red rashes about the size of a silver dollar, one on each of my cheeks, appeared.
Wow.
And it was about the time, I had been doing things locally in Fort Lauderdale, and Lauderdale was and is a city where there are a lot of people in and out, a lot of tourists. And so I would have people who would go back home and say, hey, we're in one of the first city I went to out of Fort Lauderdale. An invitation was someone had been in the classes from Lansing, Michigan, and invited me to go to Lansing. And so I was just starting to do that, so I had several invitations. I've got these 2 red running sores, and I mean, they're glaring. My friend Steve says, Michael, you need to do something about that. That's not healthy. And it's like, well, my best understanding at this point, Steve, is that my body is releasing what needs to be released, and these are reflex points from my lungs, and so it makes sense to me that my lungs are going through this healing process. I had another friend, his name was Sam, and he had a friend that was a doctor that was a skin doctor, and I went to the skin doctor. He said, look, go see him. Back in those days, they didn't have much money. Not that I have much today, but he said, go see him. I'll take care of the bill. He's a friend of mine. He'll see you for nothing. Okay. So I go see this doctor, and he looks, and he goes, oh, it's this in here. Well, let me give you a little cortisone. That'll take care of it. Well, I did cortisone for my lungs. Well, Doc, I'm not sure I want to do that. He said, why? You need to get rid of that. I said, well, what about the fact that, my body is detoxifying something, and the skin is the largest eliminative organ, and my body's letting this go? He said, I don't know anything about that. They were his words to me. And I know how to get rid of it. Here, just put this cream on it. It's like, thanks, I'll pass.
Oh, yeah.
That goes, I mean, it was a little bit on the embarrassing side. It brought up embarrassment for me because I was starting to travel, and, I don't know, for a period of almost 2 years, I had these red running sores on my cheeks.
Wow.
Bright red silver dollars on my cheeks. And I'm starting to travel around the country and teach. And then, over the time that it took for that to clear up for me, my lungs today, you've heard me talk about that recently, COVID was a major healing for my lungs. This time I'm next level, but, over the years, and I'm talking over decades, my lungs have become less and less and less of a trauma for me. At 25, they were on the verge of killing me, and today, a wheeze that's been in my lungs since I was born is not there anymore since COVID, 2 years ago.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
My invitation would be to be with willingness. Look at, remember that there are several different types of foods. There are lubricators, oils and fats. There are builders, proteins. There are congestors, things like milk and white flour and sugar and those sorts of things. And then there are eliminators. Eliminators are the foods that enhance elimination. And basically they're things like fresh fruit and vegetables. Now, banana is more a congester. An avocado is a lubricator. It's an oil. But eliminators, apples are one of the best. And, we had talked about, and you said recently that you had heard my words about maybe doing a colon detox and that you did one, and I'd say that's probably part of the reason why your body's able to start releasing this. So my highest, right, and now you're ready. Maybe you're ready to go to the next level. You know, how long have you been carrying around whatever it is that your body's now eliminating? You know, let's use a comparison of something strictly mechanical. Not that the body's strictly mechanical, but there's certainly a mechanical aspect to it. Let's imagine that I've got a septic system out in my backyard, and it's now a mess. It's leaking. It's just a tragedy, like stink and everything else. And I call in the plumber, and the plumber says, okay, I can see what the problem is. Now, I've got two solutions. One of them is not going to be fun. It's going to cost money. I'm going to have to dig up your whole backyard. It's going to take time and money, and that's what we're going to have to do. So we can do that, or I have another solution. You know, the outlet from your house of all your toilets and your showers and sinks and such, there's a 4-inch pipe there. And it's very cheap. You know, I can do this for almost nothing. And you won't have to put up with any mess out there or anything. I can put a 4-inch cork in that pipe, and I can stop that seepage into your backyard today. It's like, well, hey, sounds like ease to me. So I put in the 4-inch cork, and the pipe's plugged, and all the sewage in my backyard dries out. But then what happens? I get to deal with it in my house, right? My toilets start to back up. My sinks start to back up. My shower starts to back up. So the other solution, you have to dig up the whole backyard. It's going to be a mess. You're going to have to take the lid off. And actually, I can remember being a kid. I was probably 7 or 8 when the septic system went bad in our house. And my dad dug it up, and I helped him dig it out. I can remember that, bro. You know, it's messy. Healing is messy. Yeah. The other way, symptom suppression is clean and fast and easy, but while things look better symptomatically, they're not a solution. They're just prolonging the problem, which the longer it takes to deal with the problem, the more messy the solution's going to be. I don't know what the components are of this thing that your structure is going through, but if you've answered all 4 of those questions yes, which you did, then my offering would be, it sounds like it's your body cleaning up what it needs to clean up. Step into willingness, go into an eliminative diet, make sure you drink lots of water, stay away from the congestors, and let it move. I mean, it's not as if it's anything threatening. I understand it's uncomfortable, but, you know, I don't know how many years of discomfort genetically or in your experience of your life your body's ready to process out. I know that these 2 red running sores on my cheeks took about 2 years for me, for that experience.
Wow. Well, I love.
So I don't know. I mean, this might be done in a week, and it might take 6 months. I don't know. Again, you have the option of putting the 4-inch cork in. You know, you can take the cream and put it on it and shut that eliminative channel down. But the structure is going to try to find some other eliminative channel to eliminate it. Yeah. So if you shift into assisting the elimination, looking up and dealing with eliminative foods, apples are one of the best because the pectin in it helps soften things in the colon. Yeah. One of the things that in naturopathic medicine, the thesis at least is that every centimeter of the colon reflects as a space on your skin. And so this may be your colon doing another level of healing from that cleanse that you did, and your body's now ready to let go of this.
Wow.
So I know there are two perspectives. We can take the symptom suppression route, which is called healthcare in our culture, and you know what a mess that's in. Or we can take the healing route, which means I have to deal with what I have to deal with.
Right.
Especially if it's unpleasant. And the more I can soften my tissue structure, the more willingness I'm in, the more I breathe, the more I utilize eliminative thoughts and eliminative foods, eliminative liquids, the faster it's going to move.
Well, I've been good in all the ways I can control, which is the physical. Eating, drinking, I've been good. That isn't to say that on Sundays in Lent you're allowed to have a treat. But I don't think this is anywhere near like a little honey in my yogurt or something. I don't think that's...
But we're on vacation. We're on vacation this week with family, so I've been treating myself. I've been eating things I just don't ever eat, but oh well.
But the thoughts...
I bless it. In fact, yesterday when I did some of that, I just blessed it and ate it. I'm going to eat it.
Yeah, good.
Blessed it.
Good. Yeah. So Jeanie said something that she thought wouldn't be appropriate on the radio show, but I don't know why not. She asked me if I had been vaccinated, which I have. And I know a lot of people don't for various reasons. I do know that my nutritionist discovered or heard that the base material in which they put the vaccination antidote has caused rashes in some people. And so Jeanie was asking, could it have been the vaccination? Well, I've had, 3 or 4, I've had boosters and everything, and I never had this problem until I had COVID. But so I do think it's the COVID, post-COVID. Otherwise, I would take that into account. In fact, my nutritionist is the one that put me on bioidentical hormones, and they have as their base the same stuff that the vaccine is in, the same base. So she switched that, and she said, I'm going to change the base just to make sure that you're not continually taking something that's offending. And that hasn't made any difference. My hormones are now in some kind of a gel stuff instead of a more chewy type of thing. Jeanie might be interested because if she has any skin problems, it could be caused by that base, which is the same base as the vaccines. It's not the vaccine itself. It's just how it's delivered. But
and
so
basically,
anyway,
if someone has a rash in response to a vaccine or anything else, the body's saying, this is my largest eliminative organ, and I'm going to use it. It's the way the body's going to let loose of things. So it's not a bad thing. If there's something toxic the body needs to handle, it's going to take the shortest pathway it's got.
Yeah. Well, I'm just fascinated because rash has gone away for the most part, but then it'll show up maybe on my chest or on my back, and then it'll go away. And I was telling Jeanie that when I've done experiments, my shins and calves used to itch, and I'd have a big go at scratching. They stopped itching, and I thought, I wonder if I scratched them, whether they would itch again. And they do. You can sort of invite the itch to come back to an area that it had gone away from. This is the weirdest thing.
Well, my offering would be that if that itch disappeared, the itch is a signal that there's an energy there that the body says, I don't like this, I'm trying to get rid of it. That may be part and parcel of what your rash is about, and your body's processing, that it's become vital enough, at a point where remember we've talked about the vitality meter. It goes from 1 to 10. If you're at a level 5 vitality, you've got a level 7 toxin. The body is not going to yield that level 7 toxin up because it doesn't have the vitality to deal with it. And if you let a level 7 toxin go in a body that's a level 5, it could be fatal, literally fatal. And so it makes sense to me that as you're building your vitality, you're getting stronger. Whatever the irritating energy was in the shins, your body's being able to process and let it go. And oftentimes when that happens, and again, I speak from experience with my cheeks, and I've had other things like that, the eliminative organ of the skin becomes the most convenient way to let it be released. And it's not a bad or terrible thing. I remember we had a fellow that came to Heartland back about 20 years ago, more than that, 30 years ago, right back in the early days, and he had eczema, and I mean he was probably in his early 30s somewhere, and he had crusted skin that was just like really nasty looking. That's all I can say is nasty. And it was very uncomfortable for him. And he'd done all the treatments and all the everything. Over the 2 years that he was at Heartland, and we did it was mostly a fresh and raw diet. We were clean with food, did a lot of forgiveness work, a lot of breathing. And when he completed his 2 years at Heartland, his eczema was gone. Now, he dealt with it for years, and it was gone. And actually, I talked to him about, it's probably 2 years ago now that I was saying hello to him. And he was telling me, that his eczema was still gone and never came back. Eczema is just the body saying, there's something I need to deal with here.
Mm.
If you're doing sugar, and if you're doing junk food, and if you're doing white flour, and if you're doing, all the, food that isn't food, stuff grown on dead, devitalized dirt, your body can't ever get the vitality that it needs to process through those things. And most people, if you tell people their food is grown in dirt instead of soil, the average person who doesn't have the brain cells to know what that means will look at you and go, what the hell are you talking about? What's the difference? Well, the difference can be life and death. But most people aren't educated enough to understand that.
So you clean up the diet and you do your work. And did this man do some kind of magical work that I'm not doing? Or am I just doing the work and this is going to be how it shows up and it'll go away in due time?
You're in process. That would be my take. That would be my offering, is you're in process. The more willingness you are, the more you can cooperate with it, the faster that eliminative channel is going to open up. And the faster the channels that would normally handle whatever that is will heal and assist in cleaning it out. If that were going on for me, I would do another colon cleanse, knowing that the skin reflexes the colon, and if the colon is not effectively handling what needs to be released, then the skin is a secondary organ to help that detox to take place.
I didn't get the sense that colon cleanse did a darn thing. It was a long, gentle, month-long regimen of pills, morning and night.
Right.
Is there some? Would I know? How would I know if it was good? I mean, I don't
you
have
might
a problem
see a change in your bowel
of.
movements. You might see a change in your bowel movements. You might see. Right down to, there's a whole science of studying bowel movements, like the difference between a bowel movement that sinks to the bottom of the toilet and the bowel movement that floats. The bowel movement, forgive the French, but we have a saying in our culture about that's really heavy shit. And that means it's toxic. And that means it's toxic.
Yeah.
There's a meaning behind that. And so, a healthy bowel movement from a healthy bowel, and they'll float. Not polite conversation in our culture, but it's necessary conversation for people to have some understanding. What I would suggest you do is that you jump on Amazon or wherever you buy books and look for a book called Tissue Cleansing Through Bowel Management by a man named Bernard Jensen. And he goes through the whole function of the bowel, and he gives about 7 different levels of detox or cleanse for the bowel. From a simple, herbal one like the one you did to several that are more intense, right up to it's almost a full-time job for a week to do the Kalima program.
Wow. Say the title again, Michael. I'm sorry. You've told me before.
Tissue cleansing.
Okay.
Through bowel management by Bernard Jensen, D.C. Now, he's got pictures in there The record for a colon, colon's maybe an inch in diameter, supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
The record of someone on autopsy of the colon was 11 inches in diameter.
Wow.
Think of that, and weighed 70 pounds.
Good grief.
He's got pictures in that book of pieces of waste from people's colons, 6, 8, 10 feet long, that are dark, black, like a piece of rubber tire that you'd see on the side of the road. That's what some people are carrying around in their colons.
Wow.
Mucus has two purposes in the body. One, it's a liquidy, runny substance that's designed to lubricate. And two, it's a trap for toxicity. And when toxicity comes into the structure, that mucus thickens and creates a protective layer, particularly inside the colon. If someone isn't eliminating properly, then that protective layer tends to thicken and harden. If you've ever blown your nose in a Kleenex, and boy, you got a full Kleenex and you set it down and you forgot about it and you came back the next day and you went, well, where did all that go? It's dehydrated and gone down to almost nothing. Well, you get somebody who's done decades of putting layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of thickened mucus in the colon, and you end up with a black rubber-like substance, like rubber tire substance. And it needs to be cleaned out in order for the colon to function effectively. The gentleman who, the ultimate and the extreme colon cleanse that Bernard Jensen talks about, and that's what I was doing when I got these sores on my cheeks. It's called a kalima. And it was invented by a man named V.E. Irons, who about 30 years ago, about that same time, I was on a platform with him. I was on the road teaching and was keynoting at a conference that he was also keynoting at. And V.E. Irons was 82 years of age the day he got up on the platform that I was there in the audience as a speaker and participant in the conference. And he had his wife come up and introduced his baby, who was 2. I don't know if V. Irons is still around. That's probably 30 years ago. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if he is. I haven't looked for him lately. But at 82, he had a newborn. So he was relatively vital and, spry and up there like, as youthful as anybody that was on the stage that weekend. So he invented this process called a kalima, which is just about a 7-day full-time job to really do a deep cleanse of the colon. So what Jensen's written about is everything from the simple to the more intense colon cleansing process. He lays it all out in the book, tells you where to get it. And, Irons came up with certain herbs that help to soften the hardened wastes in the colon and assist in elimination. So he gives several things, levels of here's what you can do. I would say that would be a worthwhile book for you to read.
Oh, well, I can tell you right now, I don't want to read it, Michael, but I'll think about it.
Okay. So let's see. I don't want to know the real answer to the question I'm asking. Say it again?
No, it sounds like a total pain in the ass. I know. Sorry, I know. Right. Well, I had an uncle. I'm having a trigger. I had an uncle who recommended coffee enemas all the time.
Oh, yes.
And do you know about them?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Been there, done that.
Okay. Well, anyway.
And that's and the reason for a coffee enema is that the coffee, while it's toxic if it goes in your mouth, if you use it in the rectum, it stimulates the liver to flush and cleanse and gets toxicity out of the liver. And the liver is like the core chemical factory of the whole body. It has to detox every toxin that comes in. And, the ultimate extreme of liver detox or liver disease is things like cirrhosis, which, somebody who's been doing alcohol for 30 or 40 years does, or actually today they are finding children at 7, 8, 9, and 10 years of age that have livers that look exactly like the 70-year-old alcoholic looks. And guess what they've been doing? They haven't been touching alcohol. They've been eating and drinking foods and drinks with fructose, fruit juice.
Right.
And so, for someone who's in that state, a coffee enema might just be a godsend because it does stimulate the liver to clean out what it's accumulated and it has trouble getting rid of. So it's a direct stimulant to the liver, and that's the purpose of it. So I understand your uncle promoting it. If he had a toxic liver and did it, he experienced some monumental health benefits.
Well, I guess he did. He lived to a good old age. I won't go into a very interesting character, put it this way.
Really?
So I associated interesting characterness with this particular thing that he said we should do. So I've got a separate.
Well, aren't we all interesting characters?
I know. Yes. Well, thanks for the input. It's encouraging just to hear, because I have been doing things right. I did that one cleanse. I don't want to really ever do another one, but I'll think about it. It's the best I can tell you right now.
Well, your body is doing a cleanse without your conscious participation. That's what you're doing. That's what's happening with your skin. Your body's saying, This is the easiest and the best pathway I have, because the other pathways that would normally handle this are blocked. So you can leave them blocked and, ignore them, and your body will do the best it can do to clean things up that way. Or you can step into willingness and look at what you can do to take the pressure off of. It's like the skin is a fallback eliminative organ, and you can take the pressure off of it by cleaning up the parts of your structure that are restricted in elimination that call for the use of that backup. Or, again, there's always we can put a plug in it and stop it. So it's gone away.
Right.
Sooner or later, it's going to back up in the system, and you're going to have to deal with it some way. But, when you think in terms of energy, say again?
The fact that the COVID vaccine inspired this, it confuses or muddies the waters a little bit, because I wasn't getting a rash, and I had all those things, doing my work, elimination good, diet good. I had COVID and then got this. It made me think that it's going to run its course because this is a COVID thing.
And it may well be. It may well be, but you can assist it.
Okay.
Again, if I'm going to have a group of 20 extra people come and live in my house, I might go put an extra septic tank in, because that way it's not going to get overloaded.
Yeah.
And if a visitor has come to stay, whether it's COVID or the COVID vaccine, which there might be something in the COVID vaccine that you're simply allergic to, and your body's dealing with the allergy, the waste product from that allergy, protecting itself. Mm-hmm. It may be something in the vaccine itself that just doesn't really work in your body, and so your body's working to eliminate it, and you can cooperate with it, you could ignore it, or you can suppress it. Mm-hmm. I'm actually in the middle of working on an article on becoming your own primary healthcare provider, and what are some of the things we need. This is one of the things, but what are some of the things we need to understand in order to know in a world where, like I was just reading recently, that in America, treatment in America costs about 250,000 lives a year. That's like an AMA statistic. And this doesn't show up. This only shows up when the medical profession starts to police itself and do some research, and that's where the research is coming from. Otherwise, it doesn't show up in the hospital reports that this person died of treatment. It shows that they had the ABC disease or what have you. And in a world where that's happening, and the figures in this particular article I was looking at said that that's treatment via hospitals, and that they suspected a similar number, although they don't have a specific research on it, a similar number outside of the hospitals die of treatment. So about 500,000 people a year in America. And in a world where that's so, it would seem like we'd each need to have some level of understanding of when treatment is appropriate and what treatment is appropriate and what to do to support our way through it. It seems like that would be a reasonable thing to do, but most people don't have the awareness to be their own primary health care provider. So they're at the mercy of, in some cases, I mean, there are some phenomenal researchers and some just absolutely amazing technology and work being done, and there's a lot of damage done. We have to have the brain cells to know for ourselves, do I need a cork here or do I want to go through the process?
Yeah.
So I appreciate the questions because I think everybody listening will probably benefit from that. That's an understanding and a depth that we don't usually go to, and that most people need to know, and never know when that understanding is going to come in handy.
Yeah. Well, thanks. You know a lot. I mean, I asked Tim Hayes about it. He said, talk to Michael. Michael's the one. He can give some input on this.
I'll add something on VE irons. I just looked him up.
Yes.
I put a link in today's show, too. And it says he started his second family at the age of 72 and fathered his last child at the age of 80. He enjoyed horseback riding well into his 90s. Sadly, he passed away due to a car accident in 1993 at the age of 98. And if it had not been for the car accident, he would surely still be with us today.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, he was, there were a variety. There were, I don't know, at that conference, maybe 20 different speakers. And he was probably by far the most aged one of the group. And he was one of the most vital. And he would just proudly stood up there, and this 2-year-old child to the audience introduced his child and his wife, who was a looker. And he was 80. I mean, I don't remember what age she was, but she was nowhere near 80. Of course, having a baby. So I was not aware of that. Thank you for doing that research, Jeanie. It's something I'd never really looked at, but I mean, I never knew him. We were introduced, but that was the extent of it at that conference. But yeah, I would believe if it weren't for the car accident at 98, he'd probably still be rocking on. So he's the one who invented, if you read the tissue cleansing, Bernard Jensen's book, Bernard Jensen goes into great detail. That's the ultimate cleanse that he presents in that book, Tissue Cleansing. So any other thoughts for you, young lady?
No, that's wonderful, though. Thanks so much for all that input and encouragement. I feel encouraged. I'll keep up the good stuff and let this
go for it. Willingness.
Continue
willingness
itself.
is the biggest key. Cosmic grease. All right, we have a blessed one. Tell Tim we said hello.
You too.
All righty, lots of love. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, Miss Jeanie. Let's see, we've got about 13 minutes or so.
Yep,
if you're
and
out there
we have no
listening.
hands up.
Well, then who has something to share with us? What's on your mind? If you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our calling number is 563-999-3581. If you have a question for us or comment, call that number, push 1, and we'll be having a conversation. We'd love to say hello. What's on your mind? How can we support you?
So Linda put her hand back up. Area code 541, you're on the air.
Hello, hello.
Hey there, young lady. Welcome.
So enjoyed your and Susan's conversation today, right down my alley. Thank you so much.
Cool.
I just so appreciate Susan's the questions she asks and encourage her and have no fear. There are lots of listeners out there that are probably thinking of the very same questions that she is courageous enough to ask.
Yes.
Now, you said you were going to write an article about being your own physical health or healthcare physician, or however you put it.
I'm working on that. Well, no, just that you have to be your own primary healthcare provider. No, I mean, none of us can do all of the things that need to be done to be our own healthcare provider. But your own primary, somebody goes to their primary care who says, I think you need to go to the ABC specialist. Well, if I'm the patient of that doctor, I should have enough knowledge of my body and my life to know if the ABC practitioner is the right place for me to go. And if or at least to be able to question that and say, well, doc, I hear that, but, I don't think that sounds quite right. I have to have enough knowledge of that. Otherwise, I'm at the mercy of a profession that is in some ways so awesome. And I mean, the technology, the things, heart transplants. You just think about a heart transplant. That's like amazing. But when you think the treatment kills somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000 people a year in America and nobody talks about it, except in private in the medical circles, that's pretty tragic. So having enough knowledge to be able to question and interact so that if treatment is what's appropriate, there's a big difference between treatment and healing. And healing is always appropriate. Treatment may or may not be. You need to have enough knowledge for yourself to know whether that treatment is appropriate for you. That's my take. Or at least that's the piece that I'm putting out to the world, saying this is something that's important.
Well, that's a good clarification of what you were meaning by your statement, because I came to that conclusion about 40 years ago, and it has grown ever since. And my primary care physician is the physician within. And
yes, exactly.
My biggest challenge is being willing to hear what that physician is saying to me clearly without putting my overlay on it.
Exactly.
And that's fine. That's my growing process, my growing edge.
And that's what forgiveness is about.
Right, exactly.
Is removing the resistant voice to the guidance that will tell you exactly what you need to do. It's interesting, there's a whole field, called biofeedback. And biofeedback is basically a machine that they hook up to your body to tell you what your body's trying to tell you.
You have that.
And when you think about that, that's pretty ridiculous. Here we are. We have a whole field of specialty that sells you a machine to tell you what your body's been trying to tell you for decades. And then people go, oh, I'm hooked up to the machine. Maybe I should listen to this. Because they've shut down the physician within. I mean, that's right. Crazy, but that's what it is.
Yep. And Larry and I both, that's how we work our lives. I'm interested in the eliminative foods and the congestive foods. I know about bananas. I don't know about the oils. I seem to need more oils than some people, more fats. the mix of fat, protein, and carbs. I've sort of intuited and still am open to more intuition. Apples are my favorite fruit, so that was a bingo for me. And can one do a cleanse simply with fruits and herbs and vegetables is another thing. I'm not...
The VE...
Pardon?
The VE Irons program, he has a couple of different herbal supplements that he specifically put together to go into the lining, the artificial lining of dried mucus in the colon to soften that and open it. I mean, again, it's like a piece of, if you stopped at the side of the road and a piece of tire came off that truck, that's what comes out of people's colons. And so he's got herbal supplements that help to soften that lining and remove it.
I have done some of the herbal, like senna and stuff like that, and they're too harsh for my system. I tend to have a very sensitive
senna
system,
can be pretty hard.
so I'm hoping that, I just, dandelion.
Senna can be dangerous.
Pardon?
Senna can be dangerous because it overstimulates the colon.
I don't near it. But dandelion and chicory and milk thistle and things like that seem to attract me much more. And I'll be very blunt, Michael, not blunt, but very open in saying that, as I've mentioned before, we're on a limited budget, and my whole passion is to find out how nature would heal me, not how some formula or some laboratory concocted vitamin or mineral or something taken out of its original context and put in a pill. I've spent years doing that sort of stuff, and to me, they're just a dead end. For my body. I'm only speaking for myself now. So if there is this... the inner guidance, I think, is the biggest key. Inner guidance. Listening. And so if there's a program that's mostly foods, I'm down to the point now where my foods are as unprocessed as possible. My body, my sense is that the avocados are good for me. And
one of the best fats there is.
Pardon?
It is one of the best fats that there is.
Yes, and olive oil.
Avocado and olive oil, and it's important to look at labels. If you've got an oil in a food other than olive oil, it probably shouldn't go in your body. And I mean, virtually everything is just loaded with all kinds of vegetable oils. And if you do some research, the rise in heart disease was totally and completely in alignment with the rise in the use of vegetable oils. And so, and in buying, pardon me?
I don't use those. I'm
suggesting people read the label. I'm suggesting that people read labels, because when you buy that, chickpea snack, crunchy snack, you'll see that the second ingredient is canola oil or safflower oil, and they're things that just don't belong in the human body. And as far as olive oil goes, there's more money. Now, I don't know if this is true now, but this 10 years ago, and research showed that there was more money being made by selling fake olive oil in America than cocaine dealers were making.
Well, I knew about the fake olive oil, and so one of my big adaptations is I'm going more and more to the original food and less to the oil.
Exactly.
And I don't have, the only canned thing I may have in my house, because Larry eats meat, I don't eat meat anymore, except if my body says, eat this piece of meat, I'm going to eat the piece of meat.
Right.
But I listen to that, but I don't have the, and of course with my history of bulimia, I really watch the cravings. I watch
Right.
how they are. And I can eat a very green banana. If I eat a green banana, I think they call them a prebiotic or something like that. Once in a while, I'm fine. But it is a congester, I know right away. So I make sure that doesn't happen very often,
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I'm just ready to go on to the next level. And I'm willing to look at a formula, if one, I can make it from the original foods, and two, because of the cost factor, both.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, probably would be worth looking at and giving a reading of Bernard Jensen's book on tissue cleansing. That would probably be it's a very well written and deeply informative book.
And was that intestinal cleansing or tissue cleansing?
It's called Tissue Cleansing Through Bowel Management.
Okay. Yeah, I had
so
wrong.
it's understanding how the bowel works to clean tissue throughout the whole body. But that's the key eliminative organ.
Well, Larry has just been declared, made a new record at 82 last summer for his age group in the Senior Games of Oregon, and had invitation. Yeah, and had an invitation to go to the National Senior Games this year, but he's not interested in Erie, Pennsylvania, so we'll pass. Apparently, they're supposed to be in Spokane soon, so we'll see what happens with that. He turns 83 next month.
Awesome.
And,
guess where we're staying on Friday night?
Erie, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Our son is flying out of there, so we leave our timeshare Friday morning and take him. We're going to spend the night with he and his wife and Kaylee Joe for them to fly out, and then we'll drive back to Bristol. Small world.
If he can get sponsors, he can go farther. But he's working on that. He's diligently working on finding sponsors. So
well, congratulations to both of you.
We're using the Avicen, and you don't know how that was a big leap in faith, because we're both pretty much anti-machine, anti-technological. When we just say, hey, that's not working the way nature works, I think I'll go another direction. So we'll see how this machine works. We're using it an hour a day, pretty much every day.
Fabulous. Well, my take is that it is the most profound natural enhancement. There's only one body hack in the Avicen, and the body hack is where the vacuum draws blood into your hands so they can be heated consistently. And other than that, it's all the body doing what it does naturally. So that's the only hack. The only thing that's changed from the natural processes of the body is just putting the hand in the machine creates a vacuum, and where the heat exchanger in the palm of the hand would close if that vacuum weren't there, and it wouldn't work. So that's the only hack there is. Otherwise, everything that's happening in the body is done by the body naturally, and it's supported with heat. That's it. And it's the most amazing adjunct to health I know of.
And since I am a breath holder, dear sir, I am
Say
thinking
again?
that since I am a breath holder, I hold it on my in-breath. I'm thinking how that I don't need to do anything, but I could choose to be more consciously aware of my breathing while I'm using the Avicen, right? As well as the rest.
That would be very helpful. The other thing I would suggest you might do is you might go back through the codependence intensive that you did and get the sessions where we did still point breathing and have that in hand, and once a week or once every 2 weeks, play that, follow the instructions, and go through the still point process. That's a major key in healing. So that would be a thing you could do that would enhance for you too.
I happen to have the same physical sensations or similar to what Susan does by breathing both with the mouth on the in-breath and out-breath open. I find that what helps me is to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, because where I hold the breath is I don't let my out-breath out.
Yeah. Well, you might remember that old saying that says, and I forget who it was that penned it, was get your bloated nothingness out of the way. And that bloated nothingness, the ego part of us, is the part that is a product of programming, and specifically in the brain. And when you breathe through the nose, it supplies lots of oxygen to the brain, so it keeps it in the loop. If you breathe through the mouth, there's not so much oxygen to the brain, so the brain has a little easier time shutting up and giving a space for a different energy process to happen. So I'm not suggesting anybody breathe that way all the time or anything else, but it has a very specific purpose, and I have never seen anything that will take people into that state aside from that consistently.
The habit pattern of breathing through the mouth I do at night when I'm asleep, and I wake up with these incredibly dry.
You're going to get cut off.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, young lady. We'll hold the space. You have a blessed one. Thanks for the input.
All right, thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right,
bye-bye.
Lots of love. Bye-bye.